We can access the instrument Escort via Tools, Instrument Escort, which brings us to the management section of AgenaTrader with regards to shares, CFDs, currencies, and so on. Here the individual instruments are managed and also edited. Firstly, this is where you can select the instruments using this field up here. And you can specify the symbol here. You click on your selection, and double-clicking then confirms this selection. Or you choose the correct name. That's the search field. Here further down we have the selection tree, where we can select the individual instruments, which are already divided into their different segments. When we click on the plus, then a sub-menu opens up. And here we have the sector classifications, or the individual exchanges. And here we can now go in ever further. And with a double click, we can effectively apply the values. Then we have the Details tab, over here on the right. Here we can see the individual details that are entered for the Epsilon share. And we can also make changes here in the Details tab. The instrument list is located under this tab. Here we can apply and manage instruments. And with this, we have the tool that helps to retain the individuality of our list compilation. Within the selection tree, we not only have the individual instruments, but here we also have, marked with a different icon, the various list forms. Firstly, there are the static lists, which are the lists that we've prepared ourselves. Then we have the dynamic lists. These are the lists that are provided and that automatically update themselves since they're connected to the internet, and which also come pre-arranged. As well as this, we have the screener presets, which are the lists that have been put together based on the end-of-day screener and then represent the result here. So now let's discuss the context menu. If we right-click here on a list or a sub-menu, then we receive the option Reset Checkboxes. This here is the checkbox. If we now right-click and reset checkboxes, then this checkbox is once more deactivated. We also have the Reload field, which we need for newly added instruments, so that the list can be updated with the new entry. On the left down here, we have the Import-Export button with the corresponding selection menu. Here we can see markets and mappings, which I'll talk about again separately, since we can reach this more quickly via a separate selection field, which I'll show you afterwards. Here we have the field Import from File, which means we import our data, our instruments, from a created file, generally a CSV file or an Excel file. Please use the format templates from the written help for this. We can also import this from a dialog. And in addition, we have the option to import mappings. As well as this, we can also import instrument lists. We can import instruments from a secure XML file, as well as export them. More on the individual functions later. So now let's talk about creating and editing instruments. Beneath the Details tab here, we can see the appropriate entry fields. Here we can select a value, and we then see the symbol here, which we always have to enter when editing it. We can place a check mark here if it's an ETF, but in this case it's a share. We should also specify the corresponding name. And very important is the corresponding exchange. The exchange plays a central important role, since the marketplace Escort refers to this exchange selected here, and then accordingly sets the correct trading times entered into the marketplace Escort by you. Then we have the type of instrument. In this case it's a stock, so a share. The currency in which the instrument is traded. The margin, if we're dealing with leveraged products. The corresponding tick size, plus the monetary conversion factor. This is important for stock calculation and for profit and loss calculation. Then here we can allocate the corresponding sector. Here on the left we can see Arcelor belongs to the steel and iron sector. So here we can make our own assignment. And then when we're ready, we click on Save. And we've now edited this instrument, or even added it as a completely new instrument. Down here we can see the respective mappings. AgenaTrader uses the mapping as a number combination. And we definitely need the corresponding mappings if we have different providers. If we obtain the data from a broker, then this may not be a number combination, but, for example, a combination of letters. Under the Instrument List tab, you can edit instrument lists, which means add or remove individual instruments, for example shares, CFDs, and so on, into or from an instrument list. For one, you can do this up here on the left, by entering a symbol, then clicking on the value and dragging and dropping it into the list. You can also remove this value with the Remove button down at the bottom. And you have the possibility to bring up an existing list using the selection field. You can then see the individual shares on display here in this list. Again, you can also change these by using drag and drop to bring values over here, or also delete them using the delete key on your keyboard. But you can also create a completely new list. So to do this, I'll first delete these share values that are already present by clicking on Clear, and delete this list up here. The Clear button down here simply means that the field here is emptied. The values are still available. If I now enter a new list here, for example, Watch New, then here I can put my own list together. And I can then save this down here. And it can immediately be found down here in the list, Watch New, as well as in our static lists. Watch New is down here, and we can click on this plus symbol and then see the corresponding values added to it. If we click up here on Delete All Instruments, then the entire Watch New instrument list is deleted, as well as the instruments contained within it, which means that these are completely removed from the instrument Escort. So you have to be careful with this button. You would then have to reinstall these values in Markets and Mappings using the relevant function. And I'll show you how this works afterwards. If you click on Remove List, then only the list is deleted and the values stay in the instrument Escort. Over here we can export the list or export the instruments. This is a sort of security function. The Synchronize button down here synchronizes newly added symbols or lists and aligns these with the instrument Escort. You can also, and this is probably the more practical way to work with the instruments, You can also add these instruments to instrument lists outside of the instrument Escort, as well as remove them. To do so, for example, we have the action bar over here on the right. These buttons that have been placed here on the right, for example, watch, buy, sell, and DAX 30. When we click on this, then we add this value that we can see here in the chart into the list. And can now see here that the field is highlighted red, which means that this instrument is now added to this instrument list. When we click on this once more, then it's removed again. This is then automatically transferred into the appropriate instrument lists, as long as you have activated this in the configuration Escort with the check mark. You can select several values in the scanner using the Control key, right-click in the scanner, and then using Copy to Instrument List, Instrument Lists. Here we select this, and click on the correct field into which the selected values should be copied. Additionally, you can also add the value visible here on the chart to an instrument list using the button up here. When you click on this, then the selection list of our static lists opens up. We can then click on this here, and once again the value is automatically added to the corresponding instrument list. One more quick tip regarding the import function down here. Please pay attention to the fact that when existing instruments are added and only the updates available in the details are carried out. If the instruments are available in the instrument Escort but not in the XML file, then in this case nothing happens. However, if the instruments are not contained in the instrument Escort but are in the XML file, then these are added. Also, a heads up, even with 1,000 instruments, you should expect an update period of up to 10 minutes.